I'm getting tired of Hillary Clinton basically moving the goalpost. Um, Today, or this evening actually, Bernie Sanders released his 2014 tax return. In that return, he had $204,000 worth of income. I don't know how much money his wife was making, but I know that his salary as a U.S. Senator was $174,000. So there's only a difference of $30,000, which is probably the salary she was earning as a school teacher. But now you're going to see Hakeem Jeffries, when presented with the fact that Bernie has released his tax return as requested by Secretary Clinton, as an offset to her releasing her transcripts. Now he's going to move. He's going to move the goalpost. So I'm going to play this clip, and just so that you could see, how much double talking the Clinton campaign does anytime they're pressed with something that the people legitimately want to see.
In the last hour, Bernie Sanders' campaign has made good on a promise made last night to release his tax returns for the year 2014. Now, on these returns, Sanders reporting income from that year that was a little more than $200,000. You're seeing copies of them on your screen there. Sanders campaign manager Jeff Weaver telling the Washington Post that, quote, the couple will release its 2015 returns, which will be filed Monday, unless they seek an extension shortly after they are finished. Now, Sanders' promise to make his 2014 returns public came after the two candidates sparred over transparency at their debate last night. When Hillary Clinton was asked about releasing transcripts of paid speeches she delivered in front of Wall Street firms, she pivoted and challenged Sanders on his tax returns. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. He represents New York's 8th District. He is a Hillary Clinton supporter. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
Well, so let's start it. Last night, it was there. Hillary Clinton, will you release these speeches? She said, well, how come Bernie Sanders won't release his taxes? The taxes are out. Should the speech transcripts come out now?
Well, I think she made it clear last night that she's prepared to release her speeches if every other candidate releases their speeches in a variety of different formats.
So this isn't enough? He's got his taxes out? Not enough for her to now put out?
Well, I think she should be held to a singular standard and shouldn't be subjected to a standard different than anybody else.
But what is the standard? I've heard this line because we're talking about the Democratic race for president.
Yeah.
The question's been asked, and Bernie Sanders has said this in his speech. He said, I'll release all my Wall Street speech transcripts. There are none. So what is the standard? Why is she being held to a different standard?
See, and that's the problem. See, they keep acting like they're running against Republicans, which they're not at this point. They're running against the Democrat. The Democrat's the one that's made the request for the speeches, and now they want to hide behind the Republicans not releasing speeches that they've made to Wall Street. That's a bunch of bullshit.
He spent time traveling in a variety of different ways to a variety of different places, and it's not clear that he's actually released those speeches. I know he spent some time down in Cuba, he spent some time over in Russia. I mean, who...
Okay, so now what speeches are you talking about? Because Bernie Sanders was specific on the speeches that he's looking for, and those are the speeches that were made in front of Goldman Sachs. So if you're asking for speeches that he made when he was in Russia or Cuba, which I honestly don't believe he made any speeches. His visits, trips are basically visits to check stuff out, but he doesn't really give a lot of speeches. And he specifically said he has really not given any paid speeches to anyone. And based on that tax return that was just released, that's true. So, they're barking up a bad tree, and they're trying to deflect away from the fact that there's got to be something in those speeches that she does not want to have made public. And if there's nothing in there, then she should have put that situation to bed a long time ago. And Jeffries is just spinning, the best way he can. I'm really getting, more and more pissed off at these Clinton surrogates, who are being disingenuous as far as, playing on a level field.
Who knows what's out there? As it relates to taxes, Secretary Clinton's taxes have been a matter of public record for decades.
Okay, let's talk about those taxes. When she first entered the race and they started releasing taxes, they found some irregularities in the Clinton Foundation taxes, and it made it look like they were either hiding or sheltering some money that came through some organizations in Canada. So they had to file an amended return. I don't think the Sanders are going to have to file an amended return based on the amount of money that they're earning.
Going back probably to her time in the State House in Arkansas, and then of course in the White House during the 1990s. And so the tax issue is one thing. I'm glad that Bernie Sanders has taken a step forward, but the speech issue is totally different. And we know that she's been subjected to the Republican attack machine for more than 40 years. And so I think that she's got to be careful in how she proceeds, just because there are people who are out there ready to exploit.
So are you saying the reason for not releasing the speech transcripts would just be that Republicans might twist them into something you're uncomfortable with?
No.
That's exactly what he's saying.
I'm saying that to proceed at this presidential level on an even playing field,
All
and
this
she
is
should be held
spin.
to the same standard as everybody else.
This is spin.
Tell me about the state of the New York primary right now. Look, the Clinton campaign, she's ahead in the polls right now. Do you view this as Hillary Clinton wins New York and she can put this Democratic race behind her?
Well, there are 4 or 5 different races that will take place the following Tuesday. I do think that Bernie Sanders came into the debate last night needing a knockout punch, and he didn't deliver anything decisive. I don't think he changed the narrative. He came into that debate 2.5 million votes down. He came into the debate more than 200 pledged delegates down. And I think Secretary Clinton emerged from it with her base intact, building upon the fact that there's a lot of familiarity with her in many of the communities that I represent and those throughout New York City, because she has a track record of success and a capacity not just to talk the talk, but to walk the walk and to deliver.
Can this party unify? We have a poll in this state that almost a third of Bernie Sanders supporters are saying they couldn't vote for Hillary Clinton in the fall. You had Bernie Sanders out there at least a week ago saying she's not qualified. This debate last night, this was by far the most contentious they've had. There's going to be some long-term damage here, isn't there?
Well, I think hopefully we'll be able to come together and we don't have a Ralph Nader moment in terms of what happened in 2000, where you had a fringe candidate making the point in his view that there was no difference between George W. Bush and Al Gore. Clearly, there's a difference between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton as compared to anything that comes out of the Republican convention in Cleveland in July, and hopefully the party will be able to unite.
All right, Congressman Akeem Jeffries, Hillary Clinton supporter, thanks for the time. Appreciate it. And tax returns and transparency, that was just one of the heated issues at last night's debate, which was by all measures, as we just said, it was the most contentious we've seen between these candidates.
I do question her judgment. I question a judgment which voted for the war in Iraq.
If you go and read, which I hope all of you will before Tuesday, Senator Sanders' long interview with the New York Daily News, talk about judgment. He could not answer about Afghanistan, about Israel, about counterterrorism, except to say if he'd had some paper in front of him, maybe he could.
All right, so I love it when people conflate things. Judgment is something that you see as far as an action is concerned. So your judgment on how things should be done or what you have actually done, that is a measure of judgment. As far as explaining things, that is not judgment. That is an explanation. To explain what you want to do, okay, properly, that, not the explanation, but the actions themselves, that would be the judgment. So they're mixing apples and oranges here.
Hillary Clinton was busy giving speeches to Goldman Sachs for $225,000 a speech.
I stood up against the behaviors of the banks when I was a senator. I called them out on their mortgage behavior.
Secretary Clinton called them out. Oh my goodness, they must have been really crushed by this.
That was a great line.
So there was an analysis by Bloomberg Politics after that debate last night. It showed that the candidates attacked each other a total of 48 times. That's more than any previous debate between them. That is twice as many attacks between them as in the debate right before the New Hampshire primary. Joining me now is Nina Turner. She's a former Ohio State Senator. She's a supporter of Bernie Sanders. So, Senator, thank you for joining us. So, well, let me pick up on this. I don't know if you just heard the exchange we had there with Congressman Jeffries, but this was a big issue in that debate last night. There's, on the one hand, the Wall Street transcripts, the Wall Street speech transcripts from Hillary Clinton. On the other hand, she said the taxes from Bernie Sanders.
Right.
The taxes are out for Bernie Sanders right now. So you think now there's no excuse for Hillary Clinton not releasing the speech?
Absolutely. See, she should have released them even before the taxes. The two do not go hand in hand. And Senator Sanders got those taxes out. As you and I both know, they're really folks don't have to necessarily release their taxes, but that has been a tradition. So now they're out. That's what she raised, and so now she should.
Congressman Jeffries is saying, look, she's being held to a different standard here. There's Republicans lining up to attack her, lining up to take anything they can find and try to hurt her over it politically. And if they're not going to be releasing those transcripts, why should she?
But since when do Democrats lower their standards to fit the Republican model? I mean, we are Democrats. We are supposed to do things differently. She's running against Senator Sanders right now. She's not running against the Republicans. Senator Sanders said he will release his transcripts from any Wall Street speeches that he has done. He released those transcripts because there are none. So the secretary should, for the sake of transparency, release the transcripts.
Do you think there's something in there? What do you think the reason is for her not wanting to?
Maybe she thinks there's something in there. She hasn't released them. Let's release them. And there will be her word for word. So what is there for the Republicans to deduce from that? They're going to take her words.
I want to play, there was an exchange last night over the issue of Israel. And if there's a large Jewish population in New York, the issue is particular residents here. We have some sound of it. Let's take a listen. Oh, we don't have the sound of it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I thought we did.
Okay.
Let me ask you the question. Let me try to paraphrase what they said. But the issue came up about the Gaza war a couple years ago, and Bernie Sanders saying that there was disproportionate violence there on Israel's part, saying that Hillary Clinton in her speech to AIPAC should have mentioned the issue of Palestinians, should have mentioned the interests of Palestinians. Shaky ground for him politically here in New York. Do you think he's right to make that point?
But see, this is the beauty about Senator Sanders is honesty and consistency, and he doesn't pander or change based on what political consequences. This is how he feels. And there are lots of people, American Palestinians right now, who do feel as though elected officials in this country really don't try to balance the scales. And he was very clear that Israel has an absolute right to exist, to protect themselves, to fight against terrorism. But how are we ever going to get to peace if both sides won't come together and acknowledge that they both should exist? So Senator Sanders was being consistent and honest.
When we talked about, Congressman Jeffries was saying, look, the lead of over 200 pledged delegates for Hillary Clinton, this thing, the popular vote lead. You look at the math in this, and on the one hand, Bernie Sanders has done better than anybody expected to start this. On the other hand, math is math. He's got to start winning states to catch her in delegates. New York's a must-win, isn't it?
Well, we got to come close. I want us to win, but we got to come close, Steve. People have been counting him out from the beginning. You know, when he started, he was 3% in the polls. He was one of the last 8 of 9 if we count Democrats overseas. He is gaining ground everywhere he's been. And in this state, I think there was a poll where he was about 30 points down, and now he's within 12, depending on what poll you look at. So Senator Sanders is going to continue to plow through, to earn those votes, to talk to people about what their lives should be like, to fight, to live bigger, to think big, have a vision, and be able to execute that vision. And I think his message is really resonating.
All right, Nina Turner, former Ohio State Senator, Bernie Sanders supporter. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, Nina hits it out of the park for him again. But one thing about her, she's consistent, and everything that she says basically makes sense.